So I wanted to talk about the thru axle for these bikes today. You're going to find these on your, call them your higher end bike, or you hit a certain price point, you know, maybe $1,000, $1,500, you're going to start jumping up, seeing different types of materials. So instead of a quick release with the lever, we got a quick thru axle that goes through, and then we're going to be using an Allen wrench, an Allen tool, probably like a 6mm typically, and we're going to tighten that to a certain torque spec, somewhere around like 8 to 10 Newton meters, not very tight. What happens is it's a soft aluminum because they're trying to go lightweight, lighter than steel. If you have to take this on repeatedly over and over time, the metal's going to get a little worn and start to get stripped. So then the tool is not going to grab. Tool stuck in the quick release, or I'm sorry, through the thru axle, but then we have a destroyed thru axle, so then we got to replace that. We got to look for the correct specs. We got certain lengths, we have certain thread pitch, certain widths or diameters, so we got to look at all that information so we can get the right one. So in order to get this out successfully, since we're partially stripped, or we can get a little bit of a bite on it. Part Tool offered this tool. This is their fancy one, very nice, THH, and this happens to be a 6mm hex or Allen tool. What's cool about this is we have two sides that are the same. They're flat. There's no ball ends, so we're getting solid, good purchase material. Ball ends are meant for getting angles, but we're also missing some material, so they could slip if something's really torqued. The other end, which is a black tip, it is an Allen, but it's also twisted slightly like a drill bit, and it's opposite direction, so it's meant to help us with bolts that are stripped out. So we're gonna, if there's anything left in there, we can insert this, kind of find that fitting, and it could fit maybe 50%, 40%, just a little bit of a home, and then we're gonna go ahead and tap it in. That's the next tip that I'm offering. Once we find that home, we wanna tap this guy in, and it's going to get a really nice tight bite, and then as we're turning and loosening, you're going to be pressing in tight, so that tool does not want to slip out. And then we're going to go, we're still lefty loosey, but the way this is designed, it's going to just almost dig itself in as we're turning, but also going to loosen up our bolt. I do have this already loose already, but I'm going to go through the procedure to get this guy loose. I think in the first place, it just got over tightened, got over torqued, and it was just very difficult to get out. I don't normally take this wheel out of often. It's very seldom. If I gotta maybe change the tire, do brake pad work or something like that. That kind of goes to tell you how much it can take as far as unloosening. So when I'm putting this on the car, it's going on a bike rack, there's no reason for me to take the wheel off, which if you're doing something like that, this is gonna wear out terribly quick. So you may wanna look ahead of time, see what do you have, and you can order one ahead. So this guy, we're going to insert the black portion, and again, I'm going to go very kind of gently. I'm going to turn and kind of wait till it finds a semi-home where it wants to fall in a bit, and then I'm going to go ahead. You have to just trust that. Once we do that, I'm going to go ahead and tap this in a bit. Tap, tap, tap. You want to drive it in quite a bit, so you may want to be either several taps or be a little bit aggressive to get this driven in there, because you have nothing to lose at this point. If this fails, then we're probably getting a drill bit and we're causing a big mess and trying to, you know, drill that thing out. So once you tap that in there, we're going to go regular lefty loosey, but I'm also going to try apply pressure here, which makes it difficult because this can be dig into your palm. So get a rag pressing inward, and then we're just going lefty loosey. You may have to either brace the wheel, use your body, or have someone hold it, and then we're just pressing in like this, and then we're just turning lefty loosey. As long as we keep, if you see it starts to wedge out, just give it some more smacks, drive it in, and then continue to get that out. Once it's out, then it's easier. We can do something different to kind of wedge the tool loose from here, but that's not a problem. But I'm going to go ahead and loosen this guy up. A few several turns, we're probably free, and then we're ready to slide out. A little bit of a jiggle the wheel, jiggle the, there we go. Yeah, nice and tight. Most of the time, so that was the front, that was off the fork. What's typical nowadays is a 15mm thickness axle. So either we're using a millimeter ruler, or you can use a micrometer measuring the overall circumference. 15 mils, pretty standard for your forks. The rear width diameter wise is going to be a 12 mil. That's pretty standard too, unless you're getting into like some serious downhill specific bikes, and we definitely gets beefed up. Width wise, what is common today, they keep changing it every time you wake up. Right now we're at 110 millimeters wide, So that's your width right there, and that has to match your fork. That has to match the hub. The rear is going to be different. The rear is probably, today it's probably one from 142, and we jumped up, I think we're at 150 or just below that. I can't keep track. So this one here has some information. It's telling me it is a Maxwell. It's giving me information of L158, so that's going to be the length. And you can measure that to find out what that is. Is it from end to end, or is it end to just shy of the very, we'll call this like a top hat, right before the tool goes in. Then we have TL, which I forgot what that stood for, but that is 9 millimeters. TL can be, either it's going to be your overall interior width, or it's going to be the length of your threads, most likely length of your threads. And then TP, thread pitch. So we got M15 by 1.5. So 1.5 is most likely the spread, the thread, the distance between each thread. That's going to be 1.5. That can change. That can change quite a bit. I'd say the length is pretty standard. The diameter is pretty standard, diameter circumference. And then we have, tells us what the torque is. So when we're tightening this up, this one's 9 to 13.5 Newton meters, or they can translate it into 80 to 120 inch-pounds. But that's the gist of all your information. Hopefully that should do it for you to go purchase a new one. So let's run through this. Make sure, whoop, bam. Okay, we're gonna go with the first measurement is L, that's 158 millimeters. So we're gonna see what they are calling 158. Oof, so this thing tops out at 150. So we're gonna go with our blue one here. So with this Park tool, we're going to use that little last arrow, and yeah, so 160 would be the very end. We're probably going to go just below that edge right there. That'd be 158 mil. Next one is TL. So I have this marked, it's about 9. It's hard to get 9 exactly. I'm at 9.14. We're going to round that off to 9. So I'm just measuring the length of our threads, and that hits about the mark right there. I could try for the interior, but I don't think we're worried about that. We are worried just about the exterior. Interior wise, it comes out to almost 10, so we're at 9.8. So we're not going to worry about that. It's going to be thread length. So thread length, okay, so obviously TL, T for thread, L for length. Then we have TP, that's going to be thread pitch, I believe. So M15, if my eyes don't fail me, by 1.5. N15, that's probably another identification for the style of threads. 1.5, if we're getting a little more in detail, we're going between each thread. This one obviously is going to be a little bit more tricky, but I'm going to go ahead and set my set my micrometer to 1.5 or as close as I can, because we never know if our micrometer is slightly off, our hands are slightly off, eyeball, vision, angle, all those things. So I'm going to hit, I'm gonna 1.52. So if I was to come over here, probably not going to pick this up on camera. You have to take my word for it. And of course I don't have my glasses, but yeah, I'm going to say that's about 1.5 millimeters between thread to thread. So that's how it's almost considered kind of a rough thread. It's not very fine. Opposite of fine is going to be when we're got maybe, say there's 20 threads there. A fine is going to be maybe 30 or 40 threads there. So we're gonna bust out the new one. This is Maxwell. It does say Maxwell. Maxwell must be a type, a brand. It is by SRAM. Not sure what else to say. They usually have 50 different names. And they always give you a complimentary piece of paper here, usually nonsense, and it's a waste of paper. It just has you go to SRAM.com for service, and just matching up everything. Length 1.58, TL 9 mil, TP 15 by 1.5. So this one here, right on the edge, this is where we're putting our tool. Most likely a 6 millimeter hex or Allen tool. Torque 9 to 13.5 Newton meters, or translate that into 80 to 120 inch-pounds. Most tools, if you're using a torque wrench, will measure in Newton meters, and it may have a sticker converting from inch-pounds to Newton meters there. So if you're unfamiliar with what that feels like, use a torque wrench the first time if you can get a hold of one. Usually to figure out torque, when we're in class, we'll use a torque wrench. If someone's unfamiliar with how tight to tighten things, and yes, there is a torque setting for every single bolt on the bike. If you have a good feel, if you're known for not breaking things, over tightening, stripping stuff, most people have good common sense built-in torque to their hand. But when in doubt, you know, we started coming across more carbon materials, carbon handlebars, carbon frames, so we're carbon seat posts. So we're being a little extra careful, which I approve of. And what do I have here? And there's a couple different ones. This is a ratchet style 3/8. This is the Park Tool TW 5.2, and then we have a handheld one. Well, they're all handheld, aren't they? Something a little smaller. This goes typically from 4 Newton meters up to 6, and it is adjustable. You can get it adjustable. We got bits on the end for different sizing, 4, 5, 3, and probably a Torx T25. But this one is great for beginners because you can set it. We don't have to worry about unwinding it when we're done like the other style. This one has a spring. Once we're done, we put it back to 0 just to keep the spring life healthy. We're not fatiguing it over time sitting in the drawer for weeks or months. This one here allows you to turn the bolt, and when you hit that certain pressure, you got to turn harder. It's going to let out a big click. It's also going to kind of free up. It's going to free spin. You can do that at another time. You can double check it, get another click out of it just to confirm. This one will not allow you to over tighten. That's what's nice about this one for beginners. As of this one over here, this one lets off a very mild click. I wouldn't even call it a click. It's so mild, it's so soft, it's muffled. The head pivots very slightly. So when you're turning this and you start to feel that tension come up, go very slow. I'll start using fingertips instead of grabbing it and manhandling it. So fingertips going very slow. You're going to be more in tune with what's happening here. As soon as you hit that click, you feel that pivot, you're going to stop immediately. Take your hand off. Don't drop the tool though. You're pretty much done. If you can go over, so when you get that click or feel that pivot, you want to stop immediately. If you don't, you can continue to tighten, which you will over torque something. So you don't want to do that. So you got to be careful with this one. Once you get the hang of it, it's not a big deal. When you're done with it, unwind it, you're good to go. So with these through axles, definitely do not take your wheels on and off unless you have to, you're doing some service to it. Don't do it for fun. If you got to take it on and off to put in your car, just be aware that these can wear. The tool will wear it over time. 6mm here. So you're either maybe have one ready to go if you have to do something like that. If you have the opportunity to have a different style bike rack, then get something where you don't have to take the wheel off, and you'll be in better shape. Also with these, when you go to install these, just a really thin coat of grease on here, because it is a tight fit going through that axle, and you saw that as I was trying to pull mine out. It's very tight. So just a thin, transparent amount of grease, because if you put too much, you're just going to make a big mess when you shove it in. It's going to kind of come over to the edge, and you got to clean all that stuff up. So a little bit on the axle itself, transparent, thin coating, and then the threads itself, you can have a little splash of grease as well. Nothing too much. You don't want to be excessive. It's too much grease, like I said, makes a mess. Plus it's going to kind of spill out, and if you don't clean it really good, then you go out and ride, dust is going to accumulate to it. Not a huge deal, but you'll see that wet spot or wherever that grease was. Other than that, I think you're good. And always make sure you have the appropriate tool to take this off if you got to do repair out on the trail.